Thank you for joining us for The Confident Patient in a New World. I'm your co-host, Beth Myers, founder of 2x2 Health and co-author of The Confident Patient. And of course, I'm joined today by my colleague and co-author, Wendy Benson. As we get older, or we experience health-related mobility issues, the homes that we have lived in for many years become challenging to navigate. But today we have a guest with us who has focused her career on helping people adjust to their physical surroundings so they can stay in their homes longer. I'm pleased to welcome Leslie Markman Stern, who has owned a full-service commercial and residential interior design firm for the last 30 years. She is a professional member of the American Society of Interior Designs, the ASID, and sits on the board for the Council of Jewish Elderly Life, CJE Senior Life. She offers a unique perspective as she works with both clients and caregivers to make sure their homes are as safe and accessible as possible. And with that, I'll let Wendy take it from here.
Thank you so much, Beth. And Leslie, we are thrilled to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, we've worked together over the years, and you just have applied your professional training in such a unique and special way. Can you share with us how you decided to make the transition to those, really helping those who need assistance and, have better accessibility in their homes?
Sure. So I started off as an art major, and then I got my master's from Northwestern in working with the hearing impaired. I was the art director of Whitney Young High School for the hearing impaired, and I ran the art program. I then decided to make a career change, and I went back to interior design, and I went to school for that, and then came out and decided I was going to combine all three of my degrees. And I wanted design for people, no matter if they're able-bodied or not, so they have accessible space commercially and residentially.
And what a necessary service. Even pre-COVID, most of us want to stay in our homes just as long as we possibly can. And to be able to just merge your skill sets in such a neat way, it must be really fulfilling.
It is, very much so.
So when you're working with someone who either needs to design a new home or redesign their existing home, how do you work with medical professionals to make sure it meets the needs of people who may have some, special accommodations?
So I always like to have the interview or the discussion with the doctors, the nurses, the OTs, the PTs, anybody that is on the that person's list of professionals, because I want to design that space to meet their needs so it's healthy and safe, and that they can continue to live there. So that's the first place I go to, is talking to the medical staff that are working with my client.
Great, we appreciate that. That's really helpful for us.
And just to keep people safer longer, that's just invaluable, as we all know. So when someone might be going through a surgery and maybe they're recovering and using a walker, are there some tips that you can share just immediately that people can take into account to help increase their safety?
Sure. So the first thing I do is a home safety assessment. I want to look at the space and see if it's going to meet their needs after they're coming out of surgery or they had a stroke or whatever is happening. I'm looking at the flooring. That is a big tip-off if they have thresholds they cannot navigate, if they have high carpet, if they don't have low-level flooring and carpeting, if they have tile floors that are slippery or glare. That will also cause someone to become disoriented and maybe fall. I'm looking for level changes. I'm looking at where do they use the washer and dryer? Is it in the basement? Can we move that upstairs so they're all on one floor? So I'm constantly looking at, is there enough light in the space so they can see? How do they access the bathroom, the shower, the toilet, the sink? How do they get in and out of their sofa and their chair? How do they get in and out of bed? So there's so many factors that I'm looking at prior to the patient coming home.
And that's the ideal time to do it, obviously, so that you're looking at all those things in advance, and then the family members or the support system can help them prepare.
Exactly.
So important, so important. So with your background in audiology and working with people who have had diminished hearing, what sorts of things do you do when you're thinking about making sure that people are safe from an alarm perspective or doorbells and that type of thing?
So if someone's hearing impaired, they're not necessarily going to be able to hear those emergency or people pressing a doorbell, as you say, a telephone. They should have a flashing light so they are become aware that there is someone at the door or someone trying to reach their attention. If they're in bed, they should have some type of vibration so they're woken up. You know, we all have deep sleep and, you know, we don't always hear the phone. Maybe we could all benefit by having a vibration to get us out of bed. I certainly could have had that when my kids were little. I couldn't wake up. But they need that extra stimulus because they're not necessarily going to be able to hear it. Or they're going to be able to hear when someone's texting them. But having something nudge them, like a vibration, like we're wearing, you know, like having a vibration on our phone or our iPad or will alert us that someone's trying to reach us.
Yeah, those are great strategies to help address a need. So when you work with parents who have children with special needs, what are some examples of things that you've been able to accommodate in those environments?
So I'm looking also at doing a needs assessment of the space. You know, do they have a physical disability? Do they have a hearing or a vision? Do they have ADD? Are they on the spectrum? You know, so I need to look at all these different things. Sometimes there's too much visual stimulus in a space. Somebody, you know, has autism, or we need to quiet down the space so they can learn or function or be able to live in that space better. They don't need all that. I'm looking at the color of the lighting. I'm looking at the color of the paint. If they're having a mobility issue, you know, how do they navigate getting around? Are they using a walker or a wheelchair? So you want to make it so it's a barrier-free space for them that they can navigate, and there isn't too much stimulus. I think if there's too much going on visually or even auditorily, they may not be able to function.
I really like that, barrier-free. I mean, that resonates in terms of really being able to picture what would work better for some individuals. So, you know,
and I think we think of this, sorry, I think we think of this a lot with the elderly, but I haven't thought about it for the special need child. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's a really important piece, I think, that parents need to know that they should think about.
Well, many times the children have more than one issue. So they may be hearing impaired, visually impaired. There may be some cognitive needs we need to address. They may have ADD, and you have to look at the whole picture, a holistic approach.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you. You know, there are times when I think the family feels like some physical accommodations need to be made for someone, a family member, and there might be some resistance to the person who may have those recommendations made. Like, how do you handle it when someone would be safer without a certain rug, but they really like that certain rug or whatever the case is? I just know some people in my life who might be resistant to some change. How do you address that when that comes up?
Well, I've dealt with it personally. My parents live by themselves, and they wanted this beautiful Turkish Oriental rug. And I said, no, you cannot have area rugs. You will trip and fall. We can take that beautiful rug and put it on the wall and frame it. But they'll say, well, I really like it. And I'll say, do you want to stay here and live here? Or do you want to move to, you know, a facility? I mean, that's the choice. You have to create the space so it is safe and accessible and thinking long-term of the future. They'll say, well, I don't want a grab bar. Okay, you don't have to see the grab bar. We can hang towels on the grab bar, but you need that. Or they'll say, I'm going to step on that step stool and I'm going to reach for that item. And I'll say, no, let's put everything within your reach, whether it's a child or an adult. So, you know, we want to keep our loved ones with us, living where they are, because they just feel better being in their own space than being somewhere else. So I think you have to pose, do you want to stay here? We have to make this safe and bring them along, include them in the conversation. A long time ago, I had two sisters who asked me to transform their mother's space, and the mother was not involved at all. She came back and was very angry. I think you have to include the person in the transition, in the modifications of the place.
I completely agree. You need buy-in from them. Also, I think it would be good maybe if the children aren't there and you guys had the conversation, and now it's coming from the expert and not the children, and they might be a little more open to hearing what you have to say.
Exactly. I totally agree.
And Leslie, you have such a talent for function being beautiful. So I think also, I know that when we've, talked in the past, and I've seen lots of the projects that you've done, I think people knowing that it doesn't necessarily have to be something that looks like it's an accommodation. It can look beautiful and also have a very real function that can increase safety and the amount of time that people are able to spend in their home. So I think that it coming from you and it being a collaborative process, those things together are just a power combination.
I'm always thinking of the resale factor. People's homes are usually their largest commodity, and we want to make sure it can be resold. It should never look like a home for someone who has an issue or has some health issue. There's so many workarounds that we don't even realize with our own furnishings. Why do we have rounded corners? I mean, it's just easier to walk around than sharp. There's so many different things. Why do we have under cabinet lighting? So we can see, and we don't think of those things as unattractive.
Right, great points.
I have those in my house.
So obviously COVID-19 has affected all of us in countless ways. How has COVID-19 affected you and what you do, Leslie?
I think more people are not reaching out for help because they're afraid of having people come into their homes. And yes, we can do things on Zoom and we can come in with a mask, but we need to keep these places safe or people can't live there, successfully. So that's what I'm seeing. The people are barricading themselves in their homes. I think we're going to see more of that this winter.
And it's interesting because I think that while I certainly understand that, there's also, if people are going to want to stay in their homes longer instead of going to a facility, they're going to need to be able to make sure that that home environment is safe. And there's no better way of doing that than connecting with you. So I think that we're just going to continue to see so much evolution in terms of the way that people are handling all of these changes. So Leslie, have you noticed a silver lining or two during this global pandemic?
Yes, I have. I think people are re-examining their homes. I think they're making their homes better because they're saying, this kitchen doesn't function, this bathroom doesn't function, this is not healthy. We should be changing out our air quality and our water quality and putting in better lighting. So I think spending more time in our home or even working in our homes, we're starting to see how to make our space healthy and more accessible, and and beautiful and better for resale. So I think in the end, we're going to come on top.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie. This has been great. We really appreciate it. Beth, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I wanted to thank Leslie. I was frozen there for a second, but I'm back. So I wanted to thank Leslie Markman Stern, interior designer and owner of Leslie M. Stern Designs. If you would like to connect with Leslie, please visit her website at Leslie M. Stern Design or email her at leslie@lesliemsterndesign.com. In the meantime, be sure to check back with us, Wendy us as Wendy and I continue our conversation with medical experts as we help the confident patient in a new world.
And from all of us at 2x2 Health, we wish you great confidence and health. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you for having me. Thank you both.